Well, it's my birthday, so I thought I'd share the philosophy I've been developing over the 75 years of inhabiting the space my body takes up. I'm in the process of developing a series of talks titled Locus of Control and My Truth About God or No God, Meaning, Truth, Purpose, and Value of Value. This talk is the first in the series and focuses on perceived locus of control, while next in the series focus on meaning and knowing, followed by one on truth, purpose, and value. Who knows what will follow, but I have a few things in mind with no knowledge of when they will be completed and uploaded to YouTube. This is consistent with my developing philosophy, which is namely non-absoluteAbsolutisim, of which the basis is nothing is absolute, including that statement. Or the other way of saying it is nothing's absolute except for when it is. Then only within the framework of knowledge that has been developed up until any attempted expression of any perception of reality is undertaken. Any editing that takes place in this video is simply me pausing and restarting the video. So apologies for any unprofessionalism, because who's going to pay me anyway? Anyway, to understand my philosophy requires understanding that any expression of perceived reality is not reality, but more a perceived map, which is often mistaken for reality itself, a bit like mistaking the path for the destination or the map for the terrain. Additionally, everything is by type and degree, while paradox and conundrum abound. It appears apparent to me one of humanity's problems is not being able to distinguish absolutes from non-absolutes and the degrees in between very well. This talk also has a lot to do with redefining some meanings, while maintaining enough traditional meanings to make it comprehensible to all attempting to understand it, hopefully. Many are not aware that any word has no meaning other than the meaning ascribed to it by the individuals utilizing it. The conveyor and the recipient of words frequently have wildly varying meanings ascribed to the same word. To confound that fact, the meanings can change mid-sentence without any knowledge by either party to the exchange of thought through whatever medium is utilized. While a lot of what I have said so far may challenge a few personal paradigms, I encourage you to revisit them later to decide on their validity. And just accept that it is the paradigm filter that I perceive through for the moment. Now, starting with an important caveat. Always with the caveat that any description of reality is not complete, because that whatever part you are describing, it is relative to the whole, and that very relativity requires omnipotence to understand, and because humanity is not omnipotent in knowledge, and as any new knowledge is gained, it can and does alter perception, understanding, and knowledge itself. Also, by way of explanation, what I mean by what is a single word as opposed to the two words used with the same sound. It is inclusive of anything that exists now, has existed in the past and any possibility that actually ends up existing in the future. Or the simple version, what is equals us and the reality we inhabit. To include self or other in any description of what is really superfluous, but they often need to be included because of the nature of our fractured and disjointed perception and language, despite its sometimes perceived cohesion. Moving to relativity. Everything is relative, even if we can't join the dots of connection, let alone see the dots. If you've been waiting for a theory on everything, there it is. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I believe, despite how simple it may appear, it shall take eternity to unravel its full implications. It's rather relevant, don't you think? Something else that's relevant to this talk is the word locus, which simply means a particular place where something occurs. That's a dictionary's definition. Now moving to some of my definitions. God. Now, ain't that a good place to start? God appears to me to be the metaphor for the locus of control for most of humanity. This metaphor of control source has been expressed in the many gods that humanity has conjured up through its imagination, thinking, emotions, and experiences that humanity has experienced over time, with each individual reaching their own conclusions. So what I'm saying is many attribute their locus of control to God, while others attribute theirs locus of control to many elsewheres, well worth investigating at a later date. For the moment, I shall mainly focus on the impact of attributing God as one's own locus of control. It is worth noting the sense of locus of control is not a fixed point. It can easily move from a God to a self or any other imagined point, often unnamed. Regardless of where an individual envisions their locus of control to be, it is worth noting also that many past beliefs and values are carried into any new perceived understanding of what is, which is co-created by new thinking and continually molded to fit any new paradigm created through the interpretation of new experience. Attributing God as locus of control has served humanity well enough up until many, including Friedrich Nietzsche, declared God is dead, and all others before and since who have made the same declaration, whether only in their thinking or sharing it with others, they have all faced the conjuring up of they have all been faced with conjuring up an alternative metaphor or description for their locus of control, with varying degrees of success and without necessarily having awareness of that is what they were actually doing. This is the start of my definition of no God or God concept, which I accept will never be complete, although I will state I see any higher power that may exist as an it rather than anything with gender, although I don't rule that out. Perhaps an ill-defined hermaphrodite, unimagined. I feel I must point out, while we are all free to attribute our own locus of control wherever we find appropriate, we run into many a conundrum when we insist on others sharing, or adhering to our personal locus of control. This fact must be addressed over time, but is far beyond the scope of this part of my talk. So moving to my definition of my locus of control. My perceived locus of control is self, other, and what is. It's always about experience, interpretation, co-creation, cooperation, contradiction, ever-changing conclusions, and the mix therein and thereout. Always answerable to the perceived entity that is self, other, and what is. Getting to know better the individual parts of what is my highest ideal. All the while knowing separating the whole into parts is a distortion that must be taken into account. My conclusion this far indicates to me we need to continually rewrite our stories, expressing our knowledge gained this far, thus for the betterment of self, other, and what is. All the while utilizing the magic of illusion and language, which we will wield in ignorance, while continually attempting to conjure up more helpful and accurate knowledge. Then in the end, when we die, we return to source of knowledge, or we don't. And I'm content with either outcome, always acknowledging my past as best I can while building a better future, bringing my values forth for further challenge, not alone in my endeavours. Thanks for listening. You'll see me again when I'm happy with my meaning and knowing talk. Bye for now.